Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit System. What I'm going to bring up first here today is a look at what we call cumulative downward solar flux. So this is an anomaly map, so difference from normal. And what it's really showing you is how much sunshine's made it through the cloud cover down to the surface. So anywhere you see the cooler colors, that's where we've had a deficit, and the warmer colors represent where we've had more sunshine than normal. What's interesting about this map is to show you it in conjunction with a recent precipitation map. So this is a 30-day map of solar flux anomalies, and this is the last 30 days of precipitation anomalies. And again, you see these ranks by climate district. Some parts here of Oklahoma, Kansas, getting back to New Mexico are having, well, there are actually several reporting districts here in Oklahoma that are having their driest such time period, the last 30 days, when you compare them to history, the driest on record. But you notice where it's been dry in these areas, that's exactly where we've seen more sunshine. So it makes sense. But it's just important that we keep track of these metrics as we go through the growing season, especially for crops that are very photosensitive. Now, for me in Illinois, I always think about this with respect to soybeans. So we're always going to be watching for June and July and August to see if we're having any sort of deficit in the sunlight. So we'll keep a close eye on this particular graphic just to make sure we're staying on top of it. But I do want to show you the latest drought monitor. This one came out on the 18th. The data is through the 18th. It was released on the 20th of April. And there is still there was some drought that was in parts of, Virginia, getting up toward Maryland. And we had been toying with this throughout spring, seeing some drier conditions at times in North Carolina. But overall, right now, we see that our greatest drought is anchored in the plains of the United States, specifically over the hardwood winter wheat crop. Now, what happened this past weekend was we had a pretty strong front that came through, and a lot of the rainfall that you see here throughout North Carolina, getting up to Virginia and coastal South Carolina, we had some strong to severe storms that came through this region. And just looking here at the storm reports from this past weekend, I'm going to take you to the 22nd, and numerous reports of strong winds across North Carolina and Virginia. And these storms, as they did come through, added to the totals we've had so far this year, which are right now trending way above average. I thought you might like to see these just as kind of a way to benchmark this early season severe weather. So this is every report we've got so far up until about a week ago. And what you can see here is that we have really hammered parts of the Midwest, the South, Southeast with a lot of severe weather. What's nice about this, you can break it down into categories. So here are the tornado reports. So we have had 3 reports of tornadoes, for example, in North Carolina, much more down here in parts of South Carolina and Georgia. Most of the biggest outbreaks, though, have been in the Mid-South and Midwest. In terms of wind reports, we've had a lot more of those across this territory here. And we've seen some early season damage from these storms. Hail, a lot of that's been confined back here in the Midwest and in the parts of the southern plains. This area has been hit pretty hard with some very, very large hail this year. But to show you it all in aggregate, this is what the graphics look like. So normally by this point in the year, we've had 400 tornadoes. We're at 570. Hail reports, we are also right on the climatological average. In fact, just ahead of it, compared to normal. And our winds were well ahead of. So this has been an extremely active year for severe weather. And we're going to look at this pattern and try to determine if there's any severe weather coming with this next go of it. And unfortunately, it looks as though the pattern is not going to do this. I don't think it's set up for severe weather, especially along the east coast of the United States. Now from here, I want to quickly flip this discussion back over to temperature, and we'll finish this video with the new long-range data, but I want to show you this. Same time period, last 30 days, looking at average temperature ranks by climate district. And we have flipped this entire pattern on its head this weekend. So we're starting to build big-time warmth in the west, where it has been, in some places, record cold for the last 30 days. And we're going to start to knock back these temperatures here across this section of the country. And we've got right now here, I record these pretty late on Sunday evening, and we have all of this deep blue that you see here in a freeze warning, and surrounding it is a frost advisory, and that does include part of the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. Now, as we look out over the next 7 days and ask where is the frost extent going to be, this is what I've got. So in parts in Tennessee, Kentucky, the far western side of Virginia, but you can just see here in the Appalachian Mountains, we're still going to touch a frost. And to be honest, this Sunday morning hit Kansas, our hardwood winter wheat belt, pretty hard. Now remember, this was an area that was, of course, extremely dry. It's in record drought in and around this region, really damaging the winter wheat crop. And then we just saw here this morning, this was Sunday morning, take a look at this, we had a lot of places where the wheat's past joint and we've got sub-freezing temperatures, which means we do expect some damage. So I'm going to walk you through the low temperatures first, and we're going to step through the high temperatures and take a look at a GDD map here in a second. So as you wake up on Monday morning, we're pretty chilly. Lows in the 40s as you get into the interior, stretching down into parts of South Carolina and Georgia. And then as we go into the day on Tuesday, that's another cold one. Look at these temperatures right in through here. All right. We're going to watch most of the week have these cool overnight lows. A lot of 40s, maybe touching 50 degrees. This is now getting into Thursday, same scenario. And going out there to Friday and even into Saturday. And we're going to talk about why this is the case, why we keep seeing the colder air resurging across the whole of the eastern half of the country while the west goes warm. I'll show you that in just a second. But first, let's talk about those high temperatures. Here's what we're expecting on Monday. A lot of low 60s, touching 70 when you get down into parts of southern Georgia, maybe mid 70s. Then you get into Tuesday, still a few degrees cooler than normal. There's going to be an area riding through here we're going to have to watch carefully for some very heavy rain. I'll show you that in a second. And then we get out here to Wednesday, still cool. Thursday, still below average. Getting out into Friday, below average. And we can continue out here into Saturday. And I just want to make you all aware of something. I hope you find this tool useful. But if you just come out here and you go to ag-wx.com, agweather.com, it'll take you to my website. I am still actively working to revise and change this. And, we can just pick any town we want. And I always just pick Raleigh because it just comes front of mind here. But if we just type in Raleigh, click on it so that the number appears 47, click submit. We've got just a tremendous amount of information on the site, and I'm planning to expand this over the next month. So let me give you a case in point. All right, Raleigh, we're 108% of average on precipitation. Recent precip really brought us up here. We had 0.76 over the weekend. The next 7 days, we're looking at only grabbing 61 GDUs, but we have 1 inch to maybe 2 inches of rain coming. I'll show you that in a second. But it's going to be cool. Average temperature over the next 7 days, 57 degrees. That's 5 degrees cooler than average. So it just looks down here and shows you how cool things are going to be. But remember, there's all these stats at the bottom too. You can look at your precipitation totals. For example, you can look at the 10-day multi-model temperatures. And you see we're not coming anywhere close to a frost in Raleigh, but we're not breaking away to a whole lot of warmth. And this is just comparing a few different models here. So when we take all this information and kind of distill it down, what we can do with it is also create this graphic. So this is just looking here at the next 7 days of total accumulated GDDs. And this is using a formula for corn, so base 50, max 86. And we can sometimes see at the end of this month of April, throughout the Midwest, all the way down to the Mid-Atlantic, we're used to seeing these numbers be up around 90 to 120. And here we are sitting down here with such low values throughout the Corn Belt where there's a major frost coming through. And we're seeing that cooler weather over here across the eastern coast of the United States. So let's just go ahead and stretch this temperature discussion out and look over the next 15 days. So this is a 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. And the west is warming, and so much of the eastern half of the country is trapped into some really cool air. In fact, compared to the rest of the northern hemisphere, the coldest air compared to average, coldest air compared to average over the next 10 days is in the eastern half of the United States. Now we ask why that's the case. If we just start this off on Monday, watch these troughs, which are in blue. Troughs only exist because of cold air trapped within them. We just keep reinforcing these troughs through this weekend, and we're going to watch this one very carefully this weekend, while bigger ridges just bulge out west. So we have to get rid of those troughs in order to see a rebound in our temperatures. And that may not happen until we get through the first week of May, start to warm things back up considerably. So that means we're going to have near seasonable temperatures, but they're going to have a cold bias. But once we get out there into May, remember we talked about severe weather? This setup lights up the center part of the United States. These storms push to the east. We know how this works. These troughs dipping off California typically set up big storm systems to roll across the United States. In May, it's one of the busiest months for severe weather in the whole of the United States. Now, let's just take a look at what the next 7 days looks like compared to normal. So when you look at these graphics, remember this is a difference from normal. And what we've got is we have this system we're going to watch very carefully. There's actually 2 of them coming that are going to be coming out, dipping farther to the south and rolling right here across the southeast up to the Carolinas and Virginia. Now, you might look at this and be tempted to see the drier conditions that are going to be in the Midwest, thinking we're going to plant a lot here. Soil temps aren't high enough. We've got too much cold air. It won't be until the end of this time period, I think, that we can get aggressive on planting. All right. So let's go ahead and have a look at the European model and kind of hone in on when these systems are coming through. We're going to start this off 7 a.m. on Monday. Now we're going to be watching throughout the beginning of this week a storm system to come out of Colorado on Tuesday night and spread rain over the hard red winter wheat. Now remember, this was hit hard by drought, and it was also hit hard by a late freeze this Sunday, and now we're pushing in that moisture to follow it. So this is not going to give it the benefit it could have gotten if this rain would have come a month ago, or if we'd not already seen so much damage here. But this is Wednesday, getting into Wednesday night, really Thursday morning. Now that's when we got our first chance right here, Wednesday night, of bringing some precipitation in. But watch what happens after this. So this is going into Thursday, scattered showers. Here's the big push Friday morning, Friday midday. Look at the rain in Georgia and South Carolina. And then getting out here to Friday night. Now, I'll be watching this system to see if it has the punch to give us some severe weather. We're a little too early in the week to kind of hone in on exactly the timing of this, and timing will be everything. But let me show you again. This is 1 a.m. Friday, 7 a.m. Friday, getting to 1 p.m. Friday, 7 p.m. Friday, and then to the overnight hours. And there's a second wave coming behind it. This is next Sunday, bringing that moisture through once again. So you see, why this trajectory? Because there's a ridge here and a deep trough. So the systems have to follow that jet stream flow, and that's what they're doing. So how much total precip? Well, let's play this out. Monday into Tuesday. Remember, Wednesday's our first push, but it's not much. We're watching this carefully. As we get into the day on Thursday, the next system comes out of Oklahoma, spreads over the lower Mississippi River Valley. Watch it right here. This is Thursday afternoon into evening. Remember, Friday, there's 7 a.m. Getting to 7 p.m., we're already adding a bunch of precip in here. And it fills in going into Sunday with a secondary push right there. See it? That's Saturday night to Sunday morning. So you look out there and just say, what are these next 8 days looking like? We see across the state here of North Carolina 1 to 3 inches, some places locally higher. Same scenario for parts of South Carolina. Georgia, we see 1 to 2.5 inches seems to be the bet on this. But it's going to be soggy with these next two systems coming in late this week and one over this weekend. Then remember, it's because of this pattern. So if I take you out to day 10, which is out here May 3rd, we still have this set up. But you'll see that as we play beyond that, it opens back up a bit in the forecast models. And that's why we see if that flow comes in like this, that we get drier air that finally does come in behind this. But while that trough still sits like that, in the next 7 days, systems are going to move through. But at least it looks like a drier go of it the first full week of May. Now, since we're talking about May, new data was released late last week on the 1-month outlook. And that's what I've got for you right here from the Climate Prediction Center. They actually have us going over mild for May. And they've got a flow pattern set up where they're kind of splitting things in the west, bringing troughs in through here, but not bringing them as deep as they had, probably keeping them and bouncing them like this around some sort of subtropical ridge. And that's why we see more mild conditions here. But if the subtropical ridge sits off the coast, it also pumps moisture in. So we're seeing above average precipitation stretching from parts of Georgia up to North Carolina. Now, I can make sense of this pattern, except for the dry conditions around the Great Lakes. I don't understand that. I can't really reason that out. But I can agree with what else I see here from the CPC. But what I want to add to this is this. As we think about this longer range forecast, we have already seen an El Niño begin to take shape fast this spring. But we have two complicating factors. There's a lot of warm water here, and there's a lot of cold water there. And I don't yet fully know how these two things are going to interact with El Niño to fully set up our summer pattern. It is always a balance between jet stream flow and wherever the Bermuda high sits, right? And we're still not fully honed in on it. But if we maintain this warmer bias in our ocean temperatures, even though we talked about this last week, a reduction in the potential hurricane season, I still want to let you know that these storm systems, when they do form, if they form it in a time period when there's lower wind shear, just because that happens, okay, we got to be on the lookout for this. So I'm not settled yet either on the hurricane risk. Now, we do know that according to the latest update from the CPC and Columbia University, that the probability by June, July, August of having an El Niño is 83%. That's very high. And what we want to ask now is, what does that mean? So take a look. We're going to come back to the Climate Prediction Center site, but I'm going to click over here on the 3-month outlook. I'm going to click right on this, and you're going to be taken to this site. I highly recommend you all do this. And we're going to skip over, we've already seen May. So what about May, June, July? On the precipitation side of it, they've got wet anchored over this part of the Tennessee Valley, getting here into northern Georgia, and this extends up to North Carolina and Virginia. That would be May, June, July. They keep this going for June, July, August. Where is it dry? Where there's no southwest monsoon. Where is it dry in the northwest where there's split flow? At least that's the current thinking. What about July, August, September? This is the hurricane season. Really wet in the eastern Corn Belt, mid-Mississippi and Ohio River Valley. And then if we go out there to August, September, October, this is the one I am just trying to wrap my head around. Because this would suggest that the Bermuda High is likely sitting here. That is my explanation for this. And I don't like it. I don't like that it's nearing the coast in their models, because we could have a very sharp divide right where I'm kind of going back and forth over this arrow of where we could start to develop some summer drought issues. But this is all speculative, highly speculative. But I want to let you know what I'm watching for here. So that's the newest long-range data from the CPC, and that kind of completes our, we always get a new update of all of the models starting on the 5th with the European model, and then finally getting on to about the 21st to get the data from the CPC. So it takes about 3 weeks. But that's it. That's what I've got right now. So this is what I'm watching. Top of mind for me going forward. Okay, elsewhere around the world, we'll finish this up with one last graphic. There it is. We've been dry in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal. We've had pockets of dryness in parts of France and the UK, but lately there's been better rains. Notice throughout much of Eastern Europe, getting into Western Russia, plenty of rain. Big storm system ripped through down here in the southeastern part of China last week, a big derecho. They're still expected to be wet there. There's some extra rain coming into this part of Queensland, New South Wales. This is going to really hit the Darling and Murray River basins, so some very important river basins for agriculture due to irrigation. But then we come back to South America. No strong signals on the safrinha crop showing any sort of rapid decline of the monsoon. Remember, the monsoon is normally, when we think about May precipitation versus April, normally it's less than half in May than compared to April. So it's the time of year that it starts to slow down, but still very dry along the Parna River Basin to the south. And that's been a pretty constant narrative here. So I just want to bring up to speed on what's going on the globe, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.